The air beneath the great copper dome of the State Duma was thick with conspiracy. It was October 18th, 2025. Outside, Moscow's traffic rumbled on, totally oblivious. But inside this fortified chamber, a new axis of power was taking shape. High-level officials from Russia, China, and North Korea had gathered in absolute secrecy. They were not there to debate policy or sign public treaties. Their purpose was far more ominous. They were there to finalize a weapon that could hold the West hostage, a project so audacious it had to be shielded from the world by concentric rings of steel, concrete, and state-of-the-art surveillance. This was a meeting that could, well, redraw the global map of power. The room itself was a fortress within a fortress. Located deep beneath the main parliamentary hall, it was designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike. Its existence was a state secret, known only to the highest echelons of the Kremlin's security apparatus. The delegates sat around a polished circular table, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of a single overhead light.
Gentlemen, as we approach the final stages of our shared ambition, let's review the last critical steps. Here, take a look.
He gestured toward a holographic display shimmering in the center of the table. It showed a missile, sleek and menacing. This was the reason they were all here, the culmination of years of clandestine collaboration. The alliance was a pragmatic one, born from a shared animosity towards Western dominance. Russia provided the engineering genius and the launch infrastructure. China, its economic powerhouse, had agreed to supply the advanced propellant needed for hypersonic speeds. North Korea, the rogue state with surprising technological prowess, was tasked with perfecting the guidance software. Their mission was to make the weapon utterly invisible to enemy satellites, a ghost in the machine. Each nation brought a critical piece to the puzzle, their individual strengths combining to create something truly terrifying. They were partners in a venture designed to upend the delicate balance of global security. The atmosphere was one of grim determination. There were no grand speeches, only quiet, focused discussion.
The first shipment of propellant is already en route. Our timeline remains unchanged.
The guidance system has passed its final simulations. We are ready for integration.
The Russian minister smiled faintly. Everything was proceeding as planned. In this shielded sanctum, far from prying eyes, they believed they were untouchable. They were forging a new world order, one backed by the threat of unimaginable destruction. The weapon had a name, Molia V. It translated to lightning spear. The designation was fitting for a missile designed to be the ultimate instrument of power projection. The holographic model rotating before the delegates showed a weapon unlike any other. Its projected yield was nearly 35 megatons. This was a force of nature captured in a warhead, more powerful than all the bombs dropped during the Second World War combined.
According to our calculations, it can obliterate a city like London or New York in just 8.7 seconds. Its speed is its greatest asset, capable of reaching any NATO capital in under 14 minutes from launch.
The lightning spear was not just a weapon, it was a geopolitical statement. It was Russia's answer to years of sanctions and perceived encirclement by NATO. For China, it was a tool to assert its dominance in the Pacific and challenge America's naval supremacy. For North Korea, it was the ultimate guarantee of regime survival, a deterrent so powerful that no nation would dare to intervene in its affairs. The delegates watched the simulation with a sense of awe and pride. They were not just building a missile, they were building a new reality, one where their collective will could not be ignored or defied. The weapon was their path to what they called peace through strength.
The project is on the verge of completion. Molia V is just weeks away from its first live test. The physical components are assembled, launch protocols are written, and our allied contributions are falling into place.
The propellant will give it the thrust it needs. Our delivery schedule is secure.
The guidance software is ready. It will evade all known Western satellite detection.
It was a perfect storm of technology and ambition. Confidence in the room was absolute. The delegates believed their secrecy was ironclad and their project unstoppable. They saw the Molia Fee as the final checkmate in the long game of global politics. It would render existing missile defense systems obsolete, forcing the United States and its allies to the negotiating table on their terms. The power to hold entire nations hostage was a heady prospect.
When this is ready, the old rules will no longer apply.
The delegates nodded in silent, unified agreement. Thousands of kilometers away, in a darkened command center in Kyiv, the unthinkable was happening. The secret meeting under the Duma was not secret at all. Every word, every vibration, every flicker of the holographic display was being captured in real time. Ukraine's AAL-12 spy satellite, a marvel of modern espionage, was parked in a geostationary orbit directly above Moscow. It was part of a new generation of intelligence-gathering tools that had given Ukraine a critical edge in its long and brutal war. The satellite was not just listening, it was watching and feeling, its sensors tuned to the faintest electronic and seismic whispers. The data streamed down to Earth, where it was processed by an AI-powered surveillance system known as Ali Sentinel. This advanced artificial intelligence was Ukraine's true secret weapon. It could sift through terabytes of raw data in seconds, identifying patterns and anomalies that a human analyst would miss.
Ali Sentinel just flagged an unusual concentration of encrypted signals beneath the Duma. We're piecing together audio, faint video leaks, and even micro-vibrations from the delegates' voices. We have a complete, high-fidelity recording of the entire meeting.
The intelligence was a bombshell. For the Ukrainian president and his top military advisors, it was the most valuable information they had received in months. They now knew the exact specifications of the Molia Fee, the timeline for its deployment, and the precise roles of China and North Korea. The threat was no longer theoretical, it was imminent and existential. The lightning spear was not just a threat to NATO, it was a death sentence for Ukraine. A weapon of that magnitude in Russian hands would make any hope of victory impossible. A decision had to be made, and it had to be made immediately. There was no time to consult with allies or deliberate on diplomatic solutions. The moment demanded a bold and decisive response. The Ukrainian president looked at his generals, his face set like stone. They had the intelligence and they had the means to act on it. The Kremlin believed its parliament was an impregnable fortress, a symbol of its unassailable power. That belief was about to be put to the ultimate test. The order was given without hesitation. Operation Spiral Strike was a go. Ukraine would not just expose the secret, it would send a message directly to the heart of Moscow. Operation Spiral Strike was a symphony of deception and destruction, designed with surgical precision. It was a multi-phase attack plan relying on speed, surprise, and electronic warfare to overcome Moscow's formidable defenses. The Kremlin had surrounded the Duma with a multi-layered shield, including the advanced S-400 and Pantsir S-1 missile systems, over 1,000 surveillance cameras, and powerful anti-drone jammers. Russian leaders considered an attack on central Moscow to be impossible.
Ukraine's plan was designed to exploit that very arrogance, turning the strength of the Russian defenses into a critical vulnerability. The strike was a high-stakes gamble. The first phase began at precisely 9:31 a.m. Moscow time. 5 Ukrainian Bayraktar TB2 drones entered Moscow's airspace. These were not the primary attack force, they were decoys. Their flight patterns were programmed by AI to mimic the erratic movements of a flock of large birds, a subtle anomaly designed to trigger suspicion but not immediate alarm. As intended, the Russian air defense operators took the bait. The powerful S-400 systems locked on, and within seconds 12 heavy interceptor missiles roared into the sky. 4 of the drones were instantly obliterated in flashes of light, a costly but necessary sacrifice. The first layer of defense had been sprung. With the S-400s busy reloading, the second phase commenced exactly 1 minute later. At 9:32 a.m., 2 UJ-22 drones, flying low and fast, activated their powerful electronic countermeasures. These were not weaponized drones, they were flying jammers. They unleashed a torrent of electromagnetic energy, creating a whiteout across the city's radar grid. The effect was immediate and devastating. Over 60% of central Moscow's active radar nodes were instantly disabled, their screens filled with meaningless static. For 8 critical minutes, the eyes of Moscow's air defense system were rendered blind, creating a corridor of electronic silence. The final phase was the main event. At 9:34 a.m., with the S-400 still cycling and the radar network in chaos, the true attack force descended. A swarm of 15 Bayraktar TB2s, each armed with dual explosive warheads, emerged from the electronic fog. They approached the Duma from multiple directions, their flight paths calculated to overwhelm the remaining defenses. The short-range Panzer S-1 systems, now operating with limited targeting data, sprang to life. They fired wildly into the sky, but their effectiveness was severely hampered by the jamming. They managed to intercept only 3 of the incoming drones before the swarm was upon its target.
The first drone struck at 9:36 a.m. It hit the west wing of the Duma, a wing that housed administrative offices. The explosion tore a gaping hole in the historic facade, sending a shower of stone and glass onto the street below. Seconds later, more drones found their marks. One slammed into the roof, its warhead detonating just above the main communications room. Another hit the base of the building, severing primary power and data cables. The impacts came in a rapid, brutal succession, each explosion shaking the foundations of the structure and the confidence of the Russian state. The supposedly impregnable fortress was being torn apart. Inside, the effect was catastrophic. The force of the roof explosion caused the massive copper dome to buckle inward, its iconic shape grotesquely distorted. Reinforced glass, designed to withstand bomb blasts, shattered into millions of pieces. A secondary explosion ripped through the building's core as the main communications hub went up in flames, destroying internal security systems and backup generators. The lights flickered once, then died completely. The State Duma was plunged into a total, terrifying blackout. All communication with the outside world was severed in an instant. The heart of Russian legislative power had gone dark.
For the delegates in the secret chamber below, the world turned to chaos. The solid floor beneath them heaved violently. The holographic projector vanished, and the room was plunged into absolute darkness and silence, save for the muffled thunder of explosions from above. Emergency lights failed to activate. Their secure communication lines were dead.
These powerful men, who moments before had been calmly planning the future of global warfare, were now trapped in a concrete tomb, completely cut off and blind. Panic began to set in as the reality of their situation became clear. The attack they thought impossible was happening.
For 11 agonizing minutes, the Kremlin's military high command was completely disconnected from its own parliament. Their screens showed a void where the Duma's sensor feeds should have been. Phone lines were dead. Radio channels were silent. The highest echelons of the Russian government could only watch helplessly as a symbol of their power was assaulted with impunity in the center of their capital.
The confusion and panic rippled through the chain of command. How could this happen? Who was responsible? The silence from the Duma was deafening, a vacuum filled with the terrifying unknown. As emergency crews scrambled through the debris-choked streets of Moscow, the scale of the attack became horrifyingly clear. The State Duma was a smoldering ruin. Smoke billowed from its broken dome, a dark plume against the autumn sky. The West Wing was a skeleton of charred stone, and the surrounding grounds were littered with the wreckage of drones and the twisted metal of destroyed vehicles. The psychological impact was even greater than the physical damage. The attack had shattered the Kremlin's carefully constructed illusion of invincibility. It was a humiliation delivered with stunning precision, a message that nowhere was safe.
Inside the building, chaos reigned. Security forces, disoriented and working in near darkness, tried to establish a perimeter and account for personnel. The secret meeting chamber was eventually breached by rescue teams. They found the delegates shaken but alive, their arrogance replaced by a mixture of fury and fear. They were quickly evacuated through a network of emergency tunnels, their faces hidden from the gathering crowds and cameras.
Their grand plan for the Molia 5 had been exposed and interrupted in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The covenant made in the dark had been violently dragged into the light.
The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of unanswered questions. The Kremlin's first official statements were confused and contradictory. They initially blamed domestic terrorists before shifting to vague accusations against an unnamed state actor. But the world knew.
Within an hour, Kyiv quietly claimed responsibility, releasing a short, edited clip of the secret meeting as proof. The footage sent shockwaves through the international community. The existence of the Molia 5 was now public knowledge, as was the trilateral axis behind it. The geopolitical chessboard had been violently overturned. The attack on the Duma was more than just a military strike, it was a turning point. It left Moscow reeling, its leaders scrambling to control the narrative and assess the damage to their credibility.